So I hope you're ready to get more relevant, right? That's what we're going to talk about here, how to be radically relevant so you can attract more clients with a more irresistible, compelling, persuasive value proposition. Like I said before you could hear me, I hope you're ready to take lots of notes. It's going to be a note-taking program, unless you're driving, of course, in which case you can use the replay because we are recording. And if you have to bail early, then we'll make sure you get the recording and you can just pick up where you left off, share the recording with staff, etc. We will be taking questions a little bit as we go. I'm glad I looked down to see that the microphone wasn't turned on. And there's my email address, bill@referralcoach or billcates@referralcoach.com. If you have a question later, if we don't get it answered on the program or whatever, you have a follow-up, just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to do that. I am heading for Germany tomorrow afternoon, but I'll do my best to clean my inbox out almost every day, if that's ever possible, and we'll get your questions answered. So let's talk about relevance and to see if you're positioned for the race to relevance, because we have entered a world where becoming more relevant than ever before is not only sometimes harder, but it's more important. It's more critical to our success. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you had to look at the ultimate relevance machine, you probably can see that from the slide that's just appeared, right? You can see the colors. Well, the ultimate relevance machine is Google, right? Google's the kind of thing, you type in, you're searching for something, and you're halfway through the typing, and it's already figured out what you're looking for, right? Based on past history and based on what other people have searched for. So it always gives you the relevant searches, and you look down, you can see other relevant searches, right? That's the power of relevance. And then look at Amazon, another big relevance machine. I just happened to find this particular book listed on Amazon. And of course, when you're looking for a book or any kind of product, it'll suggest other books, other products that maybe you've looked at before, other people have searched. So again, it's creating that sense of relevance. Go buy a bottle of water. When's the last time you went to the water aisle in the grocery store? I mean, how many bottles of water or types of water can they have? And the same brand making, subsets, with sugar, without sugar, with bubbles, without bubbles, with vitamins, without vitamins, with flavor, without flavor, you name it, they've got it. And that's their attempt to be relevant in the marketplace. And the same thing with toothpaste, right? Last time you're looking for toothpaste, Colgate and all the other brands, Crest, they all have a gazillion different versions under the same brand, with tartar control, without tartar control, whitener, fresh breath, you name it. It can actually be kind of confusing, sorry. And we know that a confused mind doesn't buy. So sometimes we have to be careful about that. Well, if commodities like water and toothpaste go to the lengths like this to become micro-relevant to their customers, right, to make sure that they get the business they're looking for, what makes us think we can avoid this? What makes us think we can ignore this race for relevance? And, that's a wise person said that. That would be me. So look, isn't it great when you can quote yourself? I think you should do that in meetings with clients all the time. Just go ahead and quote yourself. It's fun. So I want to tell you a very quick story that I think will really drive home this point, and then we're going to get into a lot of note-taking, I promise. So before I was in this business, I was in the book publishing business, and I'm going to save the long story for next time you hear me live on platform, but essentially I ended up publishing a strawberry cookbook, and I published it, or I sold it through strawberry farms. Pick your own strawberry farms. We identified about 1,500 around the country. So that's relevance, right? You're picking strawberries, there's a book. Strawberry cookbook, how to cook strawberries, boom, sales, sold to farmers. It was great. They prepaid, they didn't return. They were great people to do business with. And you probably know that the strawberry season in most parts of the country are pretty short season, about 3 weeks. And so I was looking for something with a longer season. Well, that would be apples. So I published an apple cookbook for pick your own apple orchards. And there were about 1,700 of those around the country. And then, of course, apple orchards have bees, right, to pollinate the flowers. So if they have bees, it means they have honey, and most of them you'll find sell honey, sometimes their own, sometimes they bring it in. But nonetheless, I did a honey cookbook. And then, of course, a lot of these folks sell vegetables, so I did a vegetable cookbook. And we were selling about 80,000 books a year to this very targeted, very niche market, and very relevant. Every book was relevant to the person, to the company selling it, right? And then I learned about the possibility of doing specialty manufactured books for companies, people who sold cooking equipment and different types of foods, etc. So I started to look into that, and my company's name was WRC Publishing, William R. Cates, right, Publishing. Well, big deal, not much of a name there, and I was struggling. I wasn't doing very well until I had a little bit of an epiphany, a relevance epiphany, we'll call it, and I changed the name of my company to the American Cooking Guild. No, that's not me on the card there, but it's some French chef that we kind of borrowed the image from many, many years ago. And then all of a sudden, things started to work better. I mean, who would you rather go to do business with to publish a specialty cookbook, WRC Publishing or the American Cooking Guild, right? And so I did a book for a smoker company, and I did a book for a grill, and I did a book for a greeting card company with holiday cookies. But my big score, if you will, was a seafood cookbook. Bumblebee Tuna, the largest canned seafood manufacturer in the world, ordered 400,000 copies of that book, Hooked on Seafood, and that sale changed my life. I built my business, eventually sold my business in 1989, took it to the bank, if you will, and then I got into this crazy business where I can learn and teach and have a lot of fun doing it. So that's all about relevance, right? It's all about the right product or the right service to the right market with the right message, the right medium. Those are the basics of marketing, right? The right market, the right message, the right product delivered in the right way. It's a combination. They're all related. One doesn't come first, really. They all come together. And that's what we want to talk about here. So my goal is to elevate your awareness around this and get you started down the path. I'm going to show you some very specific formulas you can use for creating more relevant, more compelling messages to your market. So the goal, is to help you win more clients and make a little more money in the process, right? That's the way capitalism works, right? So we're looking for more people to serve, the right people to serve for our business. If we serve them well, we make money, we get referrals, we make more money. It's a really beautiful thing. So I want to show you very quickly how this message fits into the bigger picture of my referral system, because really what we're going to talk about fits all aspects of the referral system, but particularly when we get on the phone or we send an email or we're in front of a prospect, certainly how we talk about our value is critical, whether we're going to gain their interest or whether they're going to bore them and they're going to walk off and get another glass of wine. And centers of influence, attorneys, accountants, and anybody who might be a natural contact sphere for your business, how we talk about our value. And so if you know my system, you know that it's built around three words: engagement, leverage, and connection, right? So we want to make sure that we become super referable. Well, do you think that how you talk about your value to prospects and clients will affect your referability? Of course it will. And we have to leverage. We have to ask for referrals. We have to promote referrals and introductions. Do you think how you talk about your value proposition will affect that? Of course it will. And then, of course, we need to get connected, and that's the super place where this value really makes a difference, because we're going to get connected to new prospects. And the beautiful thing, of course, is if you do this and do this well, then you have an unlimited flow of high-quality prospects coming into your world. And you really won't want for prospects, and you won't want for the right prospects. They will be coming to you following the processes that I teach. All right, so where do we talk about our value proposition? Well, how about like everywhere? I mean, every time you talk about your business in an email, social event, business event, on the phone, friend, colleague, staff member, you are delivering your value proposition. You're delivering at least a subset of your value proposition, and how your staff, how your team members talk about where they work and what they do and what the business does. They're delivering the value proposition, and either they're doing it well or they're doing it not so well. And you've seen both, right? You've seen people trying to sell you what they offer, and some are great at talking about what they do, and they get to know you first. Let me give you an example. Just yesterday, I had a phone interview set up with someone, and she offered a service that I might want to avail myself of. I was referred to her, and so the way she set up the call is she said, well, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I do, my process, and then when I learn more about what you do and see if I can be of service. And of course, with relevance is my new mantra in my head, I'm thinking, no, that's backwards, right? Before she talked about her value and her process, she needed to have a better sense of who I was. did she not? Because then she could do a little filtering and make sure she talked about things that were relevant to me and not bring up the things that weren't relevant to me. How often do we start to deliver our message before we even get to know that person? And so you can answer the question, what do you do? And they can, you can tell folks a little bit about what you do, but you got to be careful not to go too far without finding out what they do and how what they do relates to what you do so that you can deliver a more targeted, more relevant, a more compelling message. Now, I didn't interrupt her on the phone call and say, oh, wait, you're doing this wrong. I just let her go at it and just see what happened. And it really was the power of the referral that carried it through. And I'm going to do business with her. And because of the power of the referral, almost in spite of the way she handled the call. I mean, she was good. Don't get me wrong. She knows what she's doing. But it was a little, part of the phrase, bass backwards in terms of how she did it. And so that's a big point I want to get out of this. You don't talk about your value too much to a prospective client until you learn more about them. And there's some ways to do that, and we'll talk about that as we go. So clearly, your value proposition, what you believe about your value, how you communicate your value, how it falls on the listener is the most fundamental aspect of your success in this business, right? It's the most fundamental part of your business. If we ignore a value proposition, then either we will fail or we will just not succeed as quickly as we would like to. Doesn't mean you won't succeed. It just might not happen as quickly as you'd like to. And if you're getting referrals, sometimes that masks a poor value proposition. I'm going to put my glasses on, just look and see if there's anything here that I need to see. I think everybody can hear the audio now. Hopefully. Yep. Okay. These are all audio related. All right. Good. So I'm sure my assistant would have busted through the room had she not been able to hear by now. All right. So, Bill, are you talking about the elevator pitch? Well, no, not really. It's not the elevator pitch. Although we all need a very clear and succinct and concise and confident way to talk about what we do, right? We all need to have that. So are you talking about your unique value proposition or your unique selling proposition? No, I'm not really talking about that either, although that is a subset. Really, when it comes to value proposition, here's what I mean by value proposition. It's really a comprehensive way to look at all the value that you bring to the market, all the value you bring to prospects, all the value and you are bringing value to prospects, are you not, before they become a client? Hopefully you are. All the value that you bring to clients, all the value you bring to centers of influence and everybody in your world. It's the sum total of that. That's your value proposition. And then the elevator pitch or the unique selling proposition or whatever you want to call it, that's just a way to communicate the value. It's part of the communication segments of your value proposition. All right? So I got a little pop quiz for you, and I need to put my glasses on for this. So what is the purpose of a value proposition, or what is the purpose of how we communicate our value proposition, right? Is it to attract the right people to us? Well, I would say that's probably a pretty important thing. Is it to repel the wrong people? Well, there's a novel idea, right? Some people don't think in terms of that. Is it to create action, right? Do we want people to create action based on our value proposition? Well, I think it's a trick question because the answer is all of the above, right? Our value proposition is not just to communicate our value. It's not just to tell people, here's our value, here's what we do. It's to make sure that we attract the right people. It's to make sure we repel the wrong people. And there's one other thing, right? So the purpose of a value proposition is to be attractive, is to be irresistible, is to be magnetic, right? To attract the right people to us. And that way we talk about our business in a way that those people will hear, that will resonate with those people. And we make sure we also talk about our business in a way that people we don't want, it won't resonate with them. So I'll give you one example real quick. So one financial advisor I know, he says, I work with multimillionaires who have complicated financial needs or financial situations, right? Multimillionaire. Well, if you're not a multimillionaire, you go, all right, well, he's not for me, right? So he's qualifying the right people. If you are a multimillionaire, you go, oh, that's me. Okay, what else? Tell me more, right? So it's a mutual qualifying. It's got to be a mutual qualifying here. All right, unless you're brand new in the business, they fog a mirror, meaning they're breathing. Well, okay, then you'll talk to them. But beyond that, you got to make sure it's mutually qualifying, and how we talk about our values should do that. Should be compelling and repelling at the same time. obviously it's designed to take action, right? So if you send emails to prospects that don't get returned, if you leave voicemails for prospects that don't get returned, or centers of influence or clients, well, you're not creating a compelling message. You're not moving people to take action. And so you got to take it on yourself. Now, look, not everybody's going to respond no matter how good you are, but if you're not getting as much as you think, if you feel like, the world isn't getting your value, you know it, but the world isn't getting it, well, it may be your messaging. It may be how you talk about it. And it also answers the question, are we the right fit for each other, right? This is an important question that how you talk about your value determines for you, determines for them. Are we the right fit? All right. Let me just look down real quick while you digest that and see if there's any questions that have come in or anything that it's not working. These are all the previous sound-related ones from what I can tell. Okay. Good to go, good to go, good to go, better. Okay. Well, we do have, and the audio does occasionally go in and out, guys. It's just kind of the nature of this. So this, Cisco says, I promote our value everywhere. Doesn't that contradict to know your prospect first? It's a good question, Cisco, and the truth is we do both, right? So the truth is, like on our website, someone may come to our website. We don't know that they're coming to our website, and so we are a little bit more general in how we talk about our value. But most websites, and I'm going to show you a couple examples of some websites in a few minutes, and the difference between being too general and being very targeted or maybe a little bit in between. And so the more targeted we are, the better. And the more targeted how we spread our value to everybody, the better, because we only want to attract the right people, right? So yeah, I get that. In certain circumstances, we can't be as targeted, no question about that. So Dominique says, my guess is that before someone is ready to talk about their business and needs and plans, we should create a relationship. Not sure a prospect would be open to share right away. I agree with you 100%, Dominique. You're right. And so what we have, here's what I like to do. I will often start a little bit of what I do. I give the general sense of what we do. And I say, before I go too far with that, it's pretty important that I know a little bit about who you are and your situation. First, I'll do some research even before I get on the call with somebody. Or if I'm going to a network event and there's certain people I want to meet, I will get on their LinkedIn profile, I'll get on their website, and I will learn a little bit ahead of time, some cold research perhaps. If I'm getting referred to them, then I'm getting warm research we'll talk about in a little bit. And that way we do get to know a little bit about them. And I like to start at a level of what's working, right? Before we try to peel back the scab, right, of where they're bleeding, where they're having challenges in their life, let's find out what's working. So that's where you want to start. When you start asking questions, so tell me what's working for you guys right now. And if you're a financial professional, you might say, what are some of the financial decisions you feel really good about that you've made over the years? And so let them talk about that, and that will slowly open up. Another thing, Dominique, to talk about is your why you do what you do. You want to share that fairly early in this conversation. You say, let me tell you a little bit about why I do what I do, what drives me every day. And when you start to reveal a little bit about yourself, then it gives them permission to reveal a little bit about themselves. It creates that give and take dynamic that actually allows you to go much deeper in that. So that's a very good, very relevant question. Coming strong sounds, okay, thank you. Sound is good. Should I create a separate value proposition for various markets? Yes, you should. Different markets have different value propositions, and that's where we run into a little bit of a challenge on our websites. Not that it can't be done. I have different people visiting my website. They're mostly the same overarching market, but they have different needs, and they're coming to my website for different reasons, and so we try to hit all those as well. So good. Those are the questions. Let's just keep on going. So here's what I've learned is that how we talk about our value, how we talk about our business helps other people talk about it, right? What we say, why we do it, how we do it, all that, especially if they haven't experienced that as a client yet, there's the prospect, that will still impact how they talk about what we do to other people, right? So, excuse me. So let's talk about relevance, right? Let's go a little deeper here. There's really two types of relevance, and I'm going to have to just keep my glasses on. Hopefully it's not glaring the screen. So the first is the macro relevance, which we've touched on a little bit already. The macro relevance is the strategic aspect of your business and the strategic decisions you need to make. And that is your target market, your vertical market, one or maybe multiple. And then you narrow that down a little bit more to your ideal client profile. Who do you serve the best? Who do your processes or products and services impact the best? What kind of work do you like to do? These are your ideal clients, right? What are the demographics, the psychographics about these folks? And so we got to get clear on this. And like I said earlier, the more narrow, usually the better. And a lot of people are afraid to narrow their market. They're afraid to go after a target market. The fear is this. The fear is I just focus on these folks, then I'm going to miss all of these folks, and I don't want to do that. I want to miss that opportunity. It comes from a scarcity mentality. And the truth is you'll be so successful with the people that you are serving that you won't even notice that you've missed other parts of the market. And it doesn't have to be something that happens immediately. You don't all of a sudden cut off everything. It could be a slow gradual. You probably have a target market already in your book of business. Maybe you just haven't formalized it a little bit. And so what happens with this, it's easier to identify your ideal prospects. You can get lists, right? It's just easier to identify prospects. When you have a shotgun approach to your marketing, it's hard to be relevant. It's hard to identify the players, right? It's hard to really be effective. Obviously, it's easier to deliver a more targeted value prop, right? Messaging. It's easier to create a reputation in a niche, in an industry when you target, when you're more narrow. And of course, it's easier to get referrals because you become more referable more quickly because you know their world a little bit better, and you bring more value more quickly, and then they know people like themselves. Now, obviously, a target, a vertical market it has to be big enough, right? It has to warrant a lot of your attention. They have to have the financial capacity for whatever it is that you're selling, right? They have to be able to avail themselves of that. And so those are certainly a couple of considerations. So I went to, when I was in Australia a couple of weeks ago, I've been traveling like crazy lately. I picked up one of the guys' websites, and the first thing I saw when I saw the website was watch our corporate video. Well, I wouldn't say it's a very compelling, targeted value message, right? And then I look down below, I get wealth management. Okay, so I know he does wealth management, institutional dealing. Well, if I know what institutional dealing is, then then I get that. That's relevant for me. If I don't know what institutional dealing is, then it's not relevant for me. I don't worry about it. Is it going to confuse me? Probably not. Corporate advisory. Again, if I don't know what that is, right? So he probably has 3 different personas, 3 different types of people. It's all wealth management related. It's all financial related. That's the larger umbrella, but then 3 different markets within that. So that's good that he has these 3 identified, and people will select and click on the button that's relevant to them, right? I have that same thing on my website or similar to that. But still not a very compelling message, right? So look at this website. Now, this is a financial advisor in Ohio. Does this look like a financial advisor's website? No, right? There's nothing here that talks about money other than the cost of those big trucks, etc. But this gentleman has decided, and has been for a long time, to focus on contractors, large contractors, construction, large construction, commercial construction, roads, and office buildings and commercial buildings. Right? These folks do very well. They have a lot of money. If a prospect comes to his website, they go, this guy is for me. This guy knows my world. And if you go on his website, there's other pictures that are similar to this that say, I know your world. I get your world. I am the guy for you, right? Now, that's the other extreme of a very targeted website. Here's one that's a little bit in between. And this is a woman who specializes in women in transition. So if you're a divorced or widowed woman, then you know this person probably knows your world a little bit better, right? She probably has a handle on some of the challenges and opportunities that you might be facing, maybe more than a generalist, right? Someone who's a generalist just isn't going to have the same relevance and knowledge and be able to provide the same value as someone who's a specialist, right? And so this is not as targeted perhaps as contractors, but it's still good. And when people know this, people come to this website and go, I'm not a woman in transition, but you know what they're going to think of? People they know who are. and they go, you should talk to her because she specializes on people like, going through a situation like yourself. So it actually allows you to create better word of mouth. It sticks in people's brains better when you're specialized. So I'll let that sit with you for a second. Let me see, we got a question. Can you elaborate on researching prospects before contacting the prospect and using that information so it doesn't look like you're stalking them? Well, that's a relevant question, and we will talk more about that, but you really shouldn't worry about stalking them. If someone has a LinkedIn profile, they know people can look at their profile. Don't try to go stealth, and quite often people are flattered when people look at their profile. So I have some slides. We'll go into that in a little bit more depth on that. So, so what I was noticing in these websites, the ones that are targeted at least, is where are the pictures of the retired couple walking down the beach? Where's the clip art? Oh, I want the clip art on their website. I don't want trucks, I don't want women in transition. I want clip art. Nah, see, we've got to look different. And that's one thing we're working on at my own companies. We're getting real pictures of real people, and we're going to be putting them up on our website, not just the clip art. Look, it has its place. I get that. I use it in my slides. And when we're trying to reach a specific person in a specific market and show our value, we're going to be more relevant if we show pictures that are like them, right? So here's the deal. Bottom line of relevance, if you try to appeal to everyone, you kind of appeal to no one, or at least you water down your appeal, right? The more targeted, the better. Bullseye relevance. Radical relevance is so critical. Now, I know you're not going to run out and change everything right away. That's fine. It's an evolution. It takes a little time to do this. Now, let me call your attention in the area where it says handouts. There are two reports. One's for financial professionals, because we have a lot of financial professionals on the call. And one is for more general industry. So if you're not a financial professional, you want to download that one. And that goes into some nice depth of what we're talking about here, and some things we're not talking about here, et cetera, et cetera. So that's macro relevant. Now let's talk about micro relevant. Now we're going to get a little bit into that research question. So we got to do our homework before we make a connection with someone. And there's the cold research, which is the LinkedIn profile, which is their website perhaps. You could Google their name and see what comes up there. There's lots of search engines where you can look around for folks and get a sense. Again, if you're going to a networking event, you want to do that. You want to find out who the big players are at the event, who's on the board of directors, who the big contributors to the charity. And so you have a little sense of those folks. And you can be very transparent, right? I could walk up to a big donor at a charity event and say, whenever I come to an event, I like to get a sense of who's here. And I saw your name and it was familiar, and I looked you up. I just want to get a sense of who's here. And I noticed that you're an avid you're an avid collector of model trains. You collect Persian rugs, whatever it may be. Tell me more about that, right? Be transparent. It's okay. You can even joke about it. Say, I just want to let you know, if you've sensed someone's been stalking you, it's probably been me. Now, don't get alarmed. I'll tell you what I did, right? So if you can bring a sense of humor to this, you're fine. We do this with anybody, whether we've been referred to this person or not. We can do some cold research before we get on the phone, or before we even send an email. So, for instance, I sent an email to a gentleman this morning, and I didn't know him real well, and I thought, before I send this email, let me just put a little more relevance, a little more personalization into that. So I went on his LinkedIn profile, and then I went to his website from that, and then I complimented him on a couple aspects of his website. He had a nice video on the front page of the website. He used a nice picture, was very representative of his value. So I put that into the email, and that shows that I paid attention. It shows relevance. And then the warm research is what you can usually only get from someone who knows that person, right? It's your referral source in most cases. Could be the center of influence, could be your client, but they know this person. And so a couple of things, maybe you've heard me teach this before. One question you want to ask when you're getting referred or introduced to someone, what's going on in their life that's most important to them right now? Or what's going on in their business that's most important to them right now? And you want to make sure you talk about this and find that out. And then when you relate what's going on in their world, their business that's really important to them right now to what you do, now you have a much more relevant and compelling message, do you not? If you don't know what's going on, if you wait until you ask them, then you may come across not as relevant, and you may lose them before you get them. Now, you could say, George told me that you're interested in this, or George told me that you're really good at this, right? Just, be transparent about this. It's okay. Another similar question, tell me something you like or admire or respect about her. Tell me something you like or admire about them, right? And then sometimes you'll learn things that you have in common. I learned one time I was referred to a guy, Tim Hayes in Elmhurst, Illinois, that he was real involved in the Boys and Girls Clubs in Elmhurst, and I was involved in the Boys and Girls Clubs in Washington, D.C. area. And I used to ask him, what are you guys doing these days to raise money? What's working for you? Immediate relevance, immediate rapport, just by doing a little bit of homework beforehand. It's so important to do this. And you're going to have much more relevant, compelling, interesting messages with people. So there are a lot of ways you can be super relevant. You can be super relevant in formulating your marketing decisions. Who are you going to target? Who are you going to focus on? And then crafting the messaging that will go with that complements that, reflects that. Obviously, business networking, social networking, your value prop shows everywhere, even in gift giving. And I want to tell you a real quick fun story of how you can create this relevance and personalization, even when you say thank you for referrals or thank you for being a client. So in writing my book, Radical Relevance, I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Craig, owns a very successful mortgage brokers company in the Washington, D.C. area, and he was the president, at least, and one of the principals and owners. And so he was kind enough to sit down with me and have breakfast, and I bounced ideas about my book, and I wanted to profile his business in my book, and we spent about an hour and a half. Well, I bought him breakfast, but that's hardly compensation for his time, and I know he didn't expect to get compensated for his time. He was just doing something good for me, but I still wanted to thank him. So I called a friend, colleague of mine who works for his company, and I want to say, what is Craig into? What's something that maybe he wouldn't know that I would know? And said, well, he's really into Abraham Lincoln, right? He loves Lincoln. He's read all the books. Said, oh, I can't get him a book. Okay, well, I'll look around. And then he said, and something else, I've not seen evidence of this, but I understand he likes strange, fun socks. So I don't know, take that with what it's worth. I said, okay. So I went on the Google, not the Google machine, the Amazon machine, and I searched, Abraham Lincoln, and I found this really nice bronze figurine statue of Abraham Lincoln. It's about $60. Had it shipped right to me. I was going to write a note and send it over to him, his office, right? And then, you know what? Amazon, in the relevance machine that it is, showed other things. People who have searched for this have searched for this, or people who have bought this have bought this. And guess what? Socks with Abraham Lincoln's picture on it, or bust on it, or silhouette on it, right? I mean, go figure that would have happened. And so I sent this to Craig. I got a great note from him, and I got a thank you note for the thank you note. That's the power of relevance, right? So let me take a couple questions. I find many people making intros don't keep in touch with their network enough to know what's going on and what's important to them. Yeah, amen to that one, Debbie. Do you have any advice on building relevance and reputation as a young professional in a new industry? Yes, Shannon, I would say that one of the things you need to do is to start to look at a possible niche market. It's not going to be everything you do, but it's a part of what you do. So you know that depending on what you offer to the marketplace, there are probably certain types of individuals or businesses that usually are receptive. They're more receptive. They have a need. They know they have a need. They'll pay for to fix the problem. So I'd look around for that. Maybe where you were before you entered into this business, right? You want to see, what do I know? What world do I know? And you might want to focus a little more energy in there, and that's how you can start to build that reputation. You can work the registration booth when people come in and you meet everybody. You can offer to do an educational event for the folks. You can write for their newsletter, their blog. So there's a lot of things you can do. You can maybe speak at an event at some point. Serve the industry, serve the influencers in that industry or association. And that's how you start to develop a reputation. Be a helper, be a giver, be someone who just jumps in with both feet to help, and you will get a reputation very quickly. A good one. So, I asked this question earlier, do you provide value, and wonder, how come people aren't noticing my value? Well, it's possible that you haven't hit the bullseye in their brain, right? That gets their attention, that resonates. It's all about resonance, right? We resonate, right? Maybe you were in college like me, and I don't know, I was listening to Led Zeppelin and The Who, and there'd always be one note in the bass. Whenever the bass player hit the bass note, then the walls in the apartment would vibrate, right? That's resonance, right? So we want to make sure, you know, the note that the opera singer sings and then the glass breaks, the crystal, that's resonance. We hit that sweet spot in the brain, right? And so we got to make sure we do that. And that's all about how you talk about your value and being clear on who you're trying to reach. So what's the biggest objection, the biggest challenge that you and I have in winning new business and getting clients' attention and getting them to move and, right, get off their duff? Well, it's inertia, right? It really is. It's people are stuck. And all right, that's not a very flattering picture of your prospects. Sometimes they're confused. If it's financial issues, they're confused. And a confused mind doesn't buy. A confused mind doesn't move. A confused mind doesn't usually take action, right? Or maybe they're just, you know, curious. They just don't know what to do. Maybe they're not happy with who they're working with now, but they haven't been introduced to someone else they feel they can trust, and so they just stay where they are, right? So, do you know who this guy is? No, it's not Mozart. That's a guess, I guess, sometimes, but no, it's not that. Well, let me draw a picture. Maybe you can guess it. Anybody know who it is now? Yep, somebody already typed in, Sir Isaac Newton. That's it, Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton's laws of motion, you may remember. Now, when I was in high school and took physics, I hate to tell anybody this, but the more classes I skipped, the better grades I actually got. That's kind of funny. Anyway, so Newton's first law, let me just move a slide here so I can see what I'm doing. It goes something like this. Every object continues in a state of rest or in a state of motion in a straight line at a constant speed unless it's compelled to change that state by forces exerted upon it. Cisco, thank you, Newton. So what does that mean? It means a body in motion will tend to stay in motion. A body at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by an outside force, right? Meaning, if there's a soccer ball that's rolling across the field, it'll roll across the field forever unless it hits a goal post or friction of the grass slows it down, right? That's the outside force. And obviously there's a relationship between inertia and mass, because you know, the more mass the object has, the more force it takes to either stop it or to get it going. So if it's just sitting in front of me, I've got to give it a pretty swift kick to get it going. So sometimes we just have to kick our prospects in the mass to get them moving. Yeah, I said mass. Don't get all upset. We got to kick them in the mass. We got to be compelling. So how do we kick them in the mass? How do we get more compelling? Well, what does it take to move people to action, right? So I'm just moving the screen around here a little bit. So great information, excuse me, tied to emotion. Great information is great. It can get people's interest. A compelling statistic. One statistic I saw on a gentleman's website said that 1 out of 3 business owners will die while owning their business. And within a year, the business will fail. Well, that goes like, oh, 1 out of 3. Well, if it's not you and it's not you, it could be me, right? So, but it's got to be tied to emotion, right? And that one will certainly tie to emotion. So here's what we know about decision making. Antonio Damasio, very celebrated neuroscientist, using magnetic resonance tomography. Say that 10 times fast. Magnetic resonance tomography. I can't even say it twice fast. He found that subjects who could not feel emotions could not make decisions. Right? Meaning, if someone had brain damage, whether it's an accident or something, and they couldn't feel emotion, the part of the brain that was damaged, they couldn't feel emotion, they couldn't make a decision. They couldn't decide whether they're going to have wheat flakes or corn flakes or oatmeal for breakfast. And some of these folks actually had they had to have people kind of retrain them of routines. They still couldn't make the right decisions per se, but they'd have a routine. The routine would get written down so that they could function on their own. To a certain degree. And so what we know is at the heart, at the core of every decision for someone to work with you, to meet with you, to follow your recommendations, to refer you, it's all emotional based. That's the compelling part of this proposition here. So what creates action? What hits the emotion? Well, clarity, helping people simplify. Right? I know a lot of financial professionals pride themselves in taking complicated situations and making them more simple, easier to understand, and bringing clarity. I mean, who doesn't want more clarity in every aspect of their life? Right? Some people don't even believe it's possible, which is a challenge for us if we really feel we can make it clear for them. So anytime we can help promise or talk about clarity, and we can find out that they aren't clear, that they're confused, and a confused mind doesn't take action, right? So even with a prospect, you have to start to show them how you can provide clarity, how you can take a complicated situation and make it clear. And a lot of times that's done with illustration, right? That's done with some visual, whether you do it on a napkin or draw it yourself on a piece of paper, like some people still like to do, or a touch pad where you can draw, or you have something created by an art department, a graphic artist. Doesn't matter. Having a picture sometimes really will help you with that. And so clarity is one way to trigger the emotional response. Urgency, right? If you want people to act and there's no sense of time frame here, then they could do it for, why do you think we play sports, games with a clock? Why do you think there's a clock in football and rugby and soccer and basketball? Well, it creates a sense of urgency, right? And same thing with us. So we've got to be able to tie what we do into a sense of taking action, or what happens with inaction. And we got to show them a time frame. Sometimes statistics will help with showing the time frame. But if we don't tie it to clarity, we don't tie it to time frame, we're maybe not going to hit on the emotional part. Now, here's the neat thing about most of the folks on this webinar are financial professionals, not all. Some are business consultants, and so they kind of share similar characteristics that when we're ever talking about money, there's emotion that's automatically part of money, right? So that's the good news, is that when you talk about someone's business, you talk about which is their baby. When you talk about money and every aspects of their lives, we are hitting emotional triggers. That's good. And then evidence. We got to provide a body of evidence, social proof. All right, so I know some of you are saying, well, I'm a financial professional and I can't use testimonials. I get that. I know you can't. But there's other ways to provide social proof. One of those ways is social event marketing, right? We do webinars on that. We'll do another one. We'll talk about it at our next boot camp in August, by the way. We'll have a whole little section of social event marketing. And so when you have prospects that are gathered around with clients who know your value, see your value, then what that does, of course, is creates that social proof. And when people who are clients, they like you, trust you, get together with other clients who like you and trust you, they all leave knowing that they all like and trust you better, right? So that's one way to create that evidence, that social proof, even if you can't do testimonials, right? Referrals is a form of social proof, is it not? When someone recommends you, introduces you. So I'm going to give you a new word to add to your vocabulary. You ready? Right? We've got to have a value proposition that's relevant and compelling. It's relevant and compelling. It's compellevant, right? We got to have a value proposition that, sorry, I thought I had a little slide up there. That didn't come through. But anyway, there we go. Compellevant value proposition is immediately relevant to attract attention. We've talked about that. It's compelling to move people to action, and it determines fit, right? It helps you self-select. It's mutually qualifying. A good one will do that. And so I'm gonna bring this to life for you right now, okay? So compellevance in action. I know some of you are laughing, oh, compellevance, what's Bill talking about now, right? Well, I've had a number of clients already. A bank in Kansas has already had compellevance brainstorming sessions where they're talking, how do we make our value proposition more relevant, more compelling, right? So compellevance, get used to it. All right, so the compellevant proposition generator, these are the questions that people want to know, need to know the answers to if they're going to do business with us, right? They want to know what our what is. They want to know what our who is, who we serve, especially a center of influence that might send people our way. They want to know our why we do what we do, and we want to make sure we communicate that as quickly as possible. Some folks want to know what makes us a little different. I think this whole idea of differentiation and distinction and what makes you different, it's a little overblown, the importance. I'm not saying it shouldn't be on the list. It is on the list. What makes you different or distinct can help attract interest, right? But that's not the ultimate reason why someone's going to go with you. And in the world of financial advisory, sometimes being, here's what makes me different or unique, sometimes a little scary. But here's the biggest mistake people make. When they talk about what makes them different, they don't attach it to a specific benefit or benefits. So another bank I was working with in New England sent me a list of their unique value propositions. They called them unique selling propositions, right? All of the 19 different points that make them a little bit different in the marketplace, make them unique. Well, not unique, but different. So I looked at that list, and it was a good list, but only about 3 or 4 actually tied to the benefits, right? They were implied benefits. For instance, we've been in business for 142 years. Well, they're implying that it means we're stable, but they're not saying it. So they run the risk of saying, well, it's old, stodgy, baby boomer, no interest. Not a baby boomer, but a millennial, no interest, right? So we've got to tie it to the benefit there when you talk about your difference. How you do what you do, people want to know that, of course. And ultimately, the ultimate question is, are you the right fit for me? That's what they want to know. That's what they're asking themselves. Are you the right fit for me? Are you the right advisor? Are you the right consultant? Is this the right TV for me? Whatever. That's all we want to know. And at its core, it's an emotional decision. So let me clear my throat, take a sip. I see no questions. We got a few we're going to get to that came in earlier. We'll get to those in just a minute. So what do you do? So here's a formula. So here's the formula. People say, what do you do? Or you want to tell people what you do. And obviously, when you're in a social setting, what you say may be a little different. So this doesn't account for social settings. This is more in a business setting. And as I get into this, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask, are you an expert, right? Are you a person who has special skill or knowledge in some particular field? I think you do, right? Or are you a specialist, a person who devotes him or herself to one subject or one particular branch of subject or pursuit? I'd say that's you as well. And I bring this up because I think that's one of the best ways to introduce what you do. I always when people say, what do you do? I say, I start out with my expertise. My expertise is in. It displays confidence without feeding into preconceived notions. So if you say, I'm a financial advisor, well, how do you know how that's landing on that person? If they had a bad experience with a financial advisor, all that's coming up, right? If they had a great experience and they love their financial advisor, well, okay, that's a little bit better. But we don't know how it's going to fall. We don't know how they're going to react. So what I want to do is build a little more value first, build a little more sense of who I am, what I do, with some benefit orientation before I say, yes, I'm a financial advisor or a financial planner or a business consultant or whatever it is, right? So my expertise is in. Don't be afraid to consider yourself an expert. And if you don't like to say I'm an expert in, just say my expertise is in. It softens it a little bit. I work with, right? It qualifies, demonstrates the target market. And this can change. This can adjust depending on the audience you're speaking to. And if you have a website and you speak to several different audiences, like we saw in that gentleman's previous website, then you might have 2 or 3 different choices. Are you this? Are you this? Or are you this? Right? Click the one that's most relevant to you. Who want to? Now, whatever this person or these people want to do, that's the benefits. They want to, right? They want to save more money. They don't want to retire, poor. They want the best possible TV they can possibly get for the best price. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Now we're talking about the benefits, who want to. So this formula automatically gets you into the benefit conversation. And then the hook is what brings the value to life. It could be an example. You could say, for example, or let me tell you why I'm so excited about what I'm doing. Or it could be a little story. You say, I work with who want to. And let me tell you a quick story that happened to me just the other week. Right? So then you bring it to life. This is what brings it to life. If you can use some humor here, fine. If that fits you, if you have a sense of humor, if you don't try that. But, when we're doing a webinar last fall on how to do this in social settings, one guy he says, I kind of have a sense of humor and I am a mortgage broker. What should I say? What could be fun? He says, well, just tell me you're a mortgage broker and part-time therapist. And that he started doing that. He gets a great laugh and people say, tell me more about, what do you mean? And people hard to deal with. Well, yeah, kind of. People have a lot of stuff around money. Can I tell you a quick story? Yeah, right. It just creates a natural conversation when you have a little humor. So I'll give you mine, Referral Coach International, and then I'll give you a hypothetical example that you can borrow from and learn from. So for me, we're sending a recording of this. Tom, excuse me. I don't know why I got a frog in my throat today. But yes, we are sending a recording with all the slides. So my expertise is in, the right button here, accelerating business growth through a more effective value proposition, referrals, and personal introductions, right? That's my expertise. My expertise is helping businesses grow with a more relevant, compelling value proposition, and so they generate more referrals and personal introductions. You can see how a lot of this is in the delivery, right? Uh, I work with financial professionals in their firms, and I work with more than just financial professionals. I work with business professionals, business coaches. I work with other companies occasionally, but not most of the folks on this call are financial folks. It's a big niche for me, obviously, and so that's what I say here, right? Who want to, right? What do my clients, prospects want to do? Well, they want to increase their revenue without spending more on marketing, right? Who doesn't want to increase revenue? Emotion. Who would like to spend less on marketing? Emotion, right? It's kind of universal. For example, I helped a Texas-based firm go from internet leads and seminars to 100% referral-based practice. This past year was their best year in the 22-year history, right? Had the best year ever. And so that's just an example. It allows me to brag maybe a little bit. You got to make it relevant to your personality. I get that. But this is the formula. So let's put it into the world of financial. So my expertise in personal finance, such as insurance, investments, we work with executives and small business owners. You can say whatever you want to say here, right? Who want to maximize their investments, minimize their risk, and create lasting wealth. Well, this is kind of a generic boilerplate that I'm just giving you to give you a sense of what you might say. But whoever you work with, they want to do certain things, right? What do they want to accomplish? Do they want to retire without running out of money, right? They want to leave a lasting legacy in the community. For example, that's too hard to read. Let's blow that one up. I was just sitting with a small business owner who was introduced to me by one of his colleagues. Told me that he was both relieved and excited, this newfound da-da-da. So what we're doing here is we're building in relevance and compelling, right? Small business owner, relevance. Introduce me to. Now I'm planting the seed for introductions, right? I'm always talking a little bit about introductions. Relieved, emotion. Clarity, emotion. Excited, emotion, right? We're using relevance and emotion in how we talk about what we do. I've got another example how you can put this in an email to a prospect coming up in just a minute. So this work is often hard. There's no question about that. But you don't have to do it on your own, right? You don't have to get a headache trying to do this on your own. So I just want to tell you real quick about our boot camp that we had to get rescheduled. That we've rebranded Exponential Growth 2017 because we're taking all the new material around value proposition, we're putting it in and accompanying with our work on introductions and getting more clients. Where is your, that's you and that's me, right? That's where you are. You got a gap. Everybody's got a gap. Maybe you have a gap in your referral process. That's why you're in my world a little bit. I'm trying to help you close the gap. So, are you super referable? Are you asking for introductions? Are you getting referred up to the right kind of clients? Are you turning the referrals into introductions? Because sometimes that's where it gets stuck, right? That's the low point sometimes. Are you setting appointments? Are you talking about your value in a way that you're going to set an appointment? Or is your referral source talking about your value in a way that you're going to get the appointment? Are you keeping the courtship alive? If timing isn't right, do you have a way of staying in touch with people in a value-relevant, compelling way to move them to action eventually? Are you getting referrals from centers of influence, right? Are they clear on what your value is? And are you keeping it relevant and compelling to them? And ultimately, are you communicating your relevance and compelling value proposition, right? So these are all the important things that we need to do to close our gap. So part one on our Wednesday morning of our Expo Growth is going to be all about this. We're going to have you do a little pre-work, and you're going to come ready to have this conversation and brainstorm this with other people, and we'll have some hot seats and people will talk about it in front of the group, and you'll walk away with a very powerful value proposition. Then Wednesday afternoon, we're going to make sure that you become super referable. So you get referrals without asking for them, and if you do ask, you have people that are receptive. And then on Thursday morning, we cover, it's a day-and-a-half program. We cover how to ask, how to be appropriately proactive, and how to turn those referrals into introductions. And we have follow-up coaching calls, and that's where we get into social event marketing and centers of influence. This is the kind of thing where you have to be there to really get the value. You can't learn about this in a book or just doing a worksheet. That will help, and we'll get you started that way. We'll even get you started with some videos ahead of time. And then ultimately, you want to mastermind your value. You want to brainstorm your referability. You want to build your skill around being appropriately proactive. And then we have 7 powerful videos that we put together, some of our latest stuff that will get you in the right frame of mind, get you going ready so you can really hit the ground running. If you're in my world already, then it'll be nice reminders and get you back in the right frame of mind. And then we have a free value proposition boost to the first 12 people who sign up within a certain time frame. That's an old clock, so I think it's like by June 16th, I think is the time frame. The first 12 will get a whole value booster from me, where we're going to really look at your website, look at your LinkedIn profile, look at how you talk about your value, and that's something that you will get by signing up early. We want to reward you for that. And so those are the tuitions. Most people get the early bird. Almost everybody captures the early bird. And then some people like to bring a buddy, like to bring other people in their firm, so you hear something, your buddy hears something else, you hold each other accountable, etc. It's at a nice hotel, new property, the Westin Baltimore Washington Airport. Southwest flies in, this Amtrak, right on the Amtrak line. And then we also have an optional dinner. Any members of our Referral Coach Academy, dinner's on me that night, and just have a good time, and we talk business a little bit. So if you focus on your gap, if you close your gap, then all of this will be you, right? All of this will be your world, and that's my commitment to you. So let's go. And what does it take to not just recoup, but multiply your investment? One client, maybe half a client, not a lot, right? So it's August 23rd, 24th. Mark it down. You'll start to see more messages from us, and let's go back to the relevant compellence in action, right? Compellence in action. All right. So I promised you I'd talk about how to do this with an email introduction, hypothetical email handshake. So here's one way to do it, right? So an introduction to you, right? That could be the subject line that your client's making for you. Faith, I've been doing some financial work with George and thought I'd introduce him to you. I CC'd him on this email, so I'm sure I'll be reaching out to set up an appointment, right? So that's not bad. That's pretty good. I mean, it's an introduction at least. You're CC'd. You'll follow up. Not bad, but it's not great, right? It's not compellent. So Faith, meet George Smith. Much better, right? Faith, I want to introduce you to George Smith. After I had that conversation about a retirement, not running out of money, it got me thinking. George knows more about a retirement package than our HR department, including the holes in that package. I highly recommend you meet with. Now we're getting endorsed, right? And then, George, meet my colleague Faith. And so look at all the points of compellence: running out of money, emotion, retirement package, relevance. Recommend you meet with him. I'd say that's a little bit of both, mostly emotion. We work together, relevance, right? So this is an example of how you can craft and how you can have your clients craft ways of introducing you that are much more powerful, much more relevant, much more compelling to actually create action, right? So, we cover that more, obviously, at the training camp at Exponential Growth. These are the questions that people want to know the answers to, right? So we're going to get to questions here, right? Let's start to look at questions. Here's one. Thank you. I have to run at client meeting. All the best, Norm. You're welcome, Norm. Thank you. You'll get the recording. All right. I gotta get to the questions here. There it is. All right. So Landry says, how do we determine our full value proposition? Is there a best way to do this? Do we do it in-house? Do we hire an outside firm? Do we go to our clients? And the answer is, yeah, all of those. First thing to do is you want to just, with your staff, with your team, or with a colleague, you want to sit down, or with a firm that can help you with this. Then you just talk about this, right? And you make sure you know your full value from soup to nuts, from the minute you meet a prospect and beyond, that you know how to, what your value. Then you go to your clients. Then you talk to your clients about it. Not all your clients, but you run it by them. You get their reaction to this. I had a guy, Michael Schmitz, one time I was doing this. He says, Bill, you make asking for referrals as natural as breathing. I go, I never thought of it that way. And can I use that? Can I say that? And he said, yeah, of course. So that's it. I mean, we go to our clients and we get a lot of help with that. Can you have more than one value proposition? Yeah, this was submitted before we went going. And the answer is yes, you can have more than one target market and more than one value proposition, even within that target market. Debbie asked me, I offer a broad number of services that solve many problems. Up until now, I've been trying to roll them up under one umbrella. The problem I've created is trying to explain what I do in a way that'll have some relevance and encourage people to say, tell me more, right? I worry that's what's happening, isn't that I'm not seen as an expert or a specialist. I'm considering narrowing my communication to a specific problem. Well, Debbie, I know a little bit about what you do, and I know one of the things that you do is help people move through their barriers. And I saw the different three things that you sent to me in an email, but I think at the heart of those are barriers, are they not? They're barriers with someone's self, one's business, one's employees, but I think at the heart of those we can make a case that it's the barrier, that it's barriers. So I am the remover of obstacles, and for folks, I'm the removal of barriers. And then you say, and barriers show up differently for different people. Can I give you a couple of examples? So the key here, I think, for you is to find the common denominator and to give an example or a story or an anecdote that brings it to life quickly. Maybe just tell a little bit about the story, and then they'll say, tell me more. So what happened? What did he do? Right? What was the solution to that problem? Maybe you just give them a little piece of the story. And so that your expertise is helping people look at their situation differently. So they, number one, recognize the barrier. What's the heart of the problem here, right? And then how do we dissolve that barrier? How do we pour Drano down that hole and get that thing fixed, right? So I would say, and we could talk offline, about this, but that's what I'd say. That's how you distill without losing the broad range, because people have barriers, problems in different areas, right? So I know we've gone overboard a little bit on time here, but we still have questions coming in, so I'm going to do my best to answer these. So how do you handle no response to email or elevator pitch? Well, you change your email and your elevator pitch, excuse me, to make it more compelling, right? You do a little research before you send that email out, and you comment about their website. You ask a question about what their friend told you about them, right? You make it more relevant. You make sure the subject line actually gets the email opened in the first place, right? That's the only purpose of a subject line, right? And somebody sent me an email, I think. All right, so as I follow up, how do we stay top of mind? That's a hard question to answer in this format, but you've got to have a method and a way to a series of ways to stay in touch with people. And one thing I do very simply is, because everybody's a little different that I talk to, every prospect, is when I get off the phone with someone, I'm going to, first of all, I have to have an agreement with them of when we're going to talk next, hopefully. Hopefully set up the next appointment if we can. If not, we have a time frame. And then I immediately make a note, what am I going to do next that can bring some value into their world? Right? What report can I send them? What questionnaire, checklist, video, audio? What do I have, right, for you if you're a financial professional, compliance approved, of course, that you can send to them? Or what question can you ask them the next time you get on the phone with them, right? How can you stay in touch with them that continues to lead with value? That's what you have to do. Relevant value, relevant, compelling value. All right, so I done that one. How do you suggest bridging the challenge of casting a wide net, but also being targeted and doing the right amount of qualifying research? Jean-Claude, that's a hard question to answer without really knowing a little more about what you do, without getting some more context. I think there's two, like I said, there's two types of relevance, right? There's the macro and the micro. The macro is making the right decisions to be a little more targeted. Even in your broader approach, you're still a little bit more targeted. And then you do some research, but you don't have to do it all, ahead of time. You just do a little bit ahead of time, just so you can have a subject line that's a little more relevant, that you can have your first sentence. Don't send emails to, especially to perfect strangers. Say, I hope your day's going well. I hope this email finds you doing well. Because remember, people only see the first line usually. They're looking in their smartphone. You got to start with relevance immediately. First couple words, referred to you or by Bob Jones, or promise Bob Jones I'd call you, right? Use their friend's name. That usually does it. And email examples, just show them might want to fix wrong word. All right, so I got a typo in that. Thank you for that. Jean-Claude got it. Good, thank you. And email me a question. You got John. Jean-Claude, I should say. All right. I know everybody's got to go. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you'll come visit me at our Expo growth, exponential growth. I've been talking so fast, I'm stumbling all over myself because I knew I had a lot to cover in a short period of time. How do the best get better, right? Well, they invest in themselves, and they don't go it alone, right? They bring people together. We don't all know everything. Nobody knows everything, but together we know a lot. So I don't know about you, but I haven't come this far to have only come this far. There's a next step for me, Every time I do this, I get to the next step. Every time I work with people, I get to the next step. And I hope you'll come and go to Exponential Growth 2017, Exponential Growth 2017, and get all the scoop, all the info. If you have any questions, just shoot them over to me. Dan says safe travels in Germany. Thanks, Dan. George says I await the link to review again. You got that. Jean-Claude's happy guy. Thank you, Jean-Claude. So until then, let me just leave you with a question. Who are you going to be introduced to today? Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you at the boot camp.